Hey everyone, welcome to the Dad Challenge Podcast. My name is Josh. Thanks for joining me this evening. We're going to be talking about something that's pretty gross. It's a case that just kind of blew up today and yesterday, and it's gone now, fully homicide. People have been arrested. It's been crazy. I will, trigger warning. It's going to be a tough one to stomach, you guys. These are the kind of cases that are just like, it's real crimes, it's murder, but it's just like, when it comes to kids, this stuff sticks in your gut. So be really safe out there, especially if you're a parent, even if you're not a parent, but like, just be safe is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. How you guys? Roll call. Where's everybody from tonight? Roll call. Bueller. What's that supposed to mean, Erica? What's that supposed to mean? You just wait. November 1st, Margaret. This all comes off. Melbourne. Yep. Love to see people from all over the place just chilling here. So is everybody kind of aware of what's going on with this case here in Houston? If you're not aware, so it's just a massive case of murder, homicide, neglect, and everything else. And it's just the worst people in the world. I can't fathom the idea that parents like this exist, and that it's not even that uncommon. Okay, it's not even that uncommon. So if you don't know what's going on, I'll show you guys what's going on. Let me bring up the case. So mother and her boyfriend are charged after 9-year-old's remains were found in West Harris Co. apartment in Houston. Very sad. Now, I told you guys in the video today that this is kind of sort of what happened to me a little bit, not obviously on this level. There were times in my life where I was abandoned for periods of time. It never really got terribly bad. It was very scary, specifically when you're 12 and 13 years old. So I definitely see, I've been through trauma like this, and I know that some people have reached out to me on Instagram. They've been through similar traumas, but today we're going to expand the conversation, not just about this story, obviously, yes, but we're going to expand it to how these kids continually get failed by this system that's supposed to protect them. So let's take a look at this one article here. Let me open it up for you guys. So, mother, her boyfriend charged with after 9-year-old's remains were found in West Coast Airport. So let's just play this video. I'm gonna put my headphones on. Where are they? So you don't have echo. But guys, again, this is just a gross case. Hey there, Sarah. How you doing, Sarah? Okay, let's take a look here.
Well, a gruesome discovery in southwest Harris County. It's really just unbelievable. 3 young boys were found abandoned, their young sibling's body decomposing in the same apartment. Now the question is, where do they go from here? Fox 26's Tiffany Justice joining us live now with an update on the process to find these children a safe home. Tiffany.
Experts say the next step is to find a safe and loving environment for these children. Department of Family and Protective Services is working to file an emergency removal, which will give the state.
Yeah, we knew that. Sorry. Where were the arrest videos? I saw some arrest videos. Maybe I have a different article here. Oh, there was arrest videos. Where did they go? Huh. So let me find that. Anyway, basically, where are the arrest videos? I got to find them because you got to see these people. Like, you got to see them. It's crazy. If you can send those to me, someone send them to me. Send me a second one in where? In Instagram? Twitter? Is someone making this a race thing right now already? Because don't do that here. Sorry. It's definitely a class thing, guys. It's not race. It's not racist. It's like, sorry. That bugs me a lot because of how many kids I've seen go through this, and people just want to make it about something else that it's not. I don't like it. Boyfriend's been charged with the murder. I saw that, yes, and she's been charged as well. Yeah, Cass is right, and this is the problem, everybody. I'm speaking to this from a person who suffered this type of trauma. Okay, yeah, this stuff that these kids are dealing with right now is going to live with them for the rest of their life. They're never going to let the trauma that they're going to go through is going to be, it's going to be insane. Yeah, that's what we're, yeah, the rule of child's death is a homicide there. This is a brand new case, Jessica Bolts, as of last night, I think yesterday, or I think the kids called a couple of days ago, but it's like just, if anything, we're going to be talking about the overhaul. Yeah, and I think who said that? CPS overall needs to be overhauled across the country, in Canada as well. It's just as bad here. So it's DCF in Texas. I'll try to keep it to DCF, but basically we know we're Child Protective Services. We know it's just like Child Protective is what we're looking at. Okay, send it on Instagram. I will take a look. Thank you. Oh, there it is. Thank you. All right. I want to show you guys this because it's really important to just see who your disgusting douchebags are. So here we go.
This is exclusive video just coming into our newsroom. The mother and boyfriend of those 3 boys found abandoned.
That looks like a stable dude. For sure. Stable guy right there.
In the apartment complex with the remains of their brother now in custody. This is video from the Harris County Sheriff's Office substation on Lockwood in East Houston. Of course, we're going to continue to track it.
Now, this is a story we've been following since Sunday afternoon, and the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office says the boy found dead in that apartment was murdered. The children had been living home alone. A 15-year-old boy said his brother had been dead for a year in the room next to his. He also told deputies his mom had not been back in months. His exact cause of death is not known at this time, so we're gathering more details on their arrest.
All right, thanks for the video. So basically, yeah, this has been ruled a homicide, so I'm getting a little bit late to it, but so the saddest part is that if you know, my beaver unit, I love you. The worst part is that the people in the complex had called about the smell. Some reported no AC because it was so bad. And do we have that? Do you have that article you can send me in Twitter? Or the neighbors speaking up that they called the police and then these kids were abandoned even by CPS or DCF, whatever you want to call it. And I'd like to know, is anybody who works for DCF or some sort of Child Protective Services in the chat? I would love to have you on. I'll throw you the link. If you know what you're talking about and you're not a troll, I'd love to have you come on the show and talk to me about what you know. Because, I mean, as an adoptive dad and as a kid who grew up with the system in my life, I know it. And so does people around me, okay? I know it. I don't know it as well as someone who likely works there because there's a lot of things that I don't know. And there's going to be a lot of people in this chat who are going to hate on DCF and CPS and all that kind of stuff. And I get why, but I want to make sure we're all aware, everybody, that most of the time, I want to say most, that these CPS workers and DCF workers have the good intentions, want to do what's right, but are often, their hands are often tied that they can't do what they want, right? Does that make sense? So they said it in another, okay, so it's just, I want to confirm it. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? The mom hadn't been home in months. This is the craziest part about the story, okay? So here, I'm going to bring up the article. I'll read it to you guys. Yeah, I can bring it up for you so you can read it with me. So, arrests have been made after 9-year-old boy's remains were found in an apartment. Okay, Gloria Williams, 35, the mother of 9-year-old, and Brian Coulter, 31, the boyfriend of the mother, were taken into custody and charged on Tuesday, today. Okay, Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez said Coulter had been charged with murder, while Williams had been charged with injury to a child by omission, failure to provide medical care, and failure to provide adequate supervision. Additional charges are expected to be filed. What I don't get about that whole file is that she should be an accessory, right? Is there something kind of pop up here? Like, she should be an accessory. Do you guys see this thing that's over my head right here? Do you guys see that? Is that just me? Oh, it's just me. She should be an accessory. She knew clearly what happened, right? Also, she's not there. Yeah, Mel Gypsy, Texas CPS, a joke. They return to kids' homes that aren't safe. And we know this happens. This isn't like a rare occurrence. This happens all the time. So anyway, let's go back to the article real quick. Harris County Sheriff. Okay, according to the medical examiner, 9-year-old's death has been ruled a homicide by multiple blunt force injuries. The child's skeletal remains were discovered Sunday at the apartment, 350 block Greencrest. Authorities say the other boys, 7, 10, and 15, were found abandoned at the apartment. According to the sheriff's office, the 15-year-old boy called authorities around 3:15 Sunday, so 2 days ago. And the 9-year-old brother had been dead for a year, and his body was in the next room. The 15-year-old said that his parents had not lived in the apartment with him and his 2 siblings for several months. Guys, I got to pause it there for a second. How is that possible? Several months. Who's paying rent? How do people not see that? The neighbors have got to see that. The kids never went outside. Like, what's going on here? There's so much more to the story that we are not being told. How did these kids get by? How did this 15-year-old do this? And why did he not say anything? Well, Miller's Owl Studio, what kind of parent does this? The worst kind of parent. The most disgusting type of parent. The selfish, disgusting type of parent. That's who. Did the kids not go to school? Good question, CASCAP. Mandated reporters, where are these kids? What's going on? Yeah, even if you don't, I don't think it's truancy. Maybe I'm wrong in Canada. It's not truancy. If you just don't show up, they're going to call the cops. If you don't show up to school in Canada and you're supposed to be in school, the cops are coming to your house. Like, they're going to find out what's going on with you. Neighbors fed them. I did know that. Here it is. This is a good point, Katrin. Sorry if I got your name wrong. The COVID moratorium of eviction has slowed. Also, likely, hear me out, and this is what nobody. I know you guys don't want to hear this. Maybe some of you do, but okay. This is maybe why they lived with their dead brother for a year. COVID. They didn't have to go to school, right? They were on school online. But how did they go? Apparently, there's no electricity, no internet. How are these kids going to school online? Are they using their neighbor's Wi-Fi? And if that's the case, did the neighbors not know that these kids are home alone? A news article I read on Facebook, the oldest was afraid he would be blamed for it or that they would split them all apart. Oh, that's so heartbreaking. You know what? The idea realist, I think a case with this much attention, and hopefully it gets more, will draw the right people with the big hearts to say, hey, this is going to get national attention, right? And it already has. And people, I hope somebody would step up, a foster parent. I know Mark would, Tom would, I would as a foster parent. Definitely step up and take these kids in for sure. I do think that the one silver lining is that someone will take them all in because of the national story. Yeah, the 15-year-old is definitely, Plain Jane says, I would guess the 15-year-old must have been super traumatized over something not have called for. Yeah, I mean, this is it. The 15-year-old was scared. That's the problem. The 15-year-old was scared. All children deserve to have parents, but not all parents, exactly. And you know what? People get ratioed for saying things like, you shouldn't have kids. You know what? Yeah, these people shouldn't have kids. They should be never allowed to have kids ever again. Authorities say the skeletal remains of a small child found in the apartment appear consistent with the age provided by a 15-year-old. During the news conference on Sunday, it was able to disclose exactly how long the children were left behind. I don't know why. I think this is going to be a big DCF cover-up thing. Like, they're going to protect each other. DCF, I don't care what anybody says here, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that DCF failed these kids. And again, Amber, we'll talk about therapy, and we're talking about trauma in children. Kids will need therapy, and the issue with this is why fostering and adoption people pay families to take kids in, because that shit's expensive. Okay, clothing and everything else, they do get paid, but some of these people take in kids and they don't put it towards the kids' health. Okay, here what we do in our family is we all go to therapy. Therapy is one of the most important things to do. Okay, and that's one of the things that these kids are going to need for the rest of their life, not just a week or two or a month or 6 months, the rest of their life. This brother's going to be living with this. Tawny, the 15-year-old boy called on Sunday, called the police and told them everything. So the school that you worked at, Laura and Amanda, had Wi-Fi to students who didn't have COVID, but how did they get it to them? How is that possible? You can't just give somebody Wi-Fi unless they give them a laptop loaded with a SIM card with LTE data or something in it. That makes sense. No, it was the 9-year-old that was found deceased. 9-year-old. Yeah, this is true. The neighbors were saying that the apartments get inspected. It's funny how this one was inspected for over a year. How did they pay the rent? I mean, people are saying the moratorium was basically they took advantage of COVID right here. Here's the article. Here's another article. Thanks, my beaver. Can you just change your name? Okay, a neighbor brought food to 3 children living alone for months while with the decomposing body of their brother in a suburban Houston apartment, and even charged their cell phone, yet no one investigated until the oldest child in the apartment called police. Why do these people know that they're feeding kids, but they're not going to call the police? While it wasn't clear just how long, and yet the children's horrific situation was not unknown. So here it is. And yet, the children's horrific situation was not unknown. The sheriff's department told the Daily Beast that an unidentified resident of the apartment complex brought the children food for at least the past 2 weeks before the 15-year-old called police and had charged their cell phone. Why didn't that person call the police? More than one resident of the large complex about 20 miles from downtown Houston said the smell coming from the apartment was more than just noticeable. That it was so bad she couldn't turn on her air conditioner without foul odors being poured into her apartment. That resident said she repeatedly reported the problem to management. Somebody's going to get sued. Another long-term resident of the complex said the maintenance workers had been making the rounds of apartments for a week before the discovery, checking to see if any repairs were needed. I'm concerned nobody smelt nothing, she said. Something's not adding right. Something ain't right. The same neighbor wondered about the resident who helped the children with food. If an adult was bringing them food to eat, they must have seen that child, she said. And another neighbor said she had once run across the older boy sleeping on the playground slide. I asked him if he was hungry. He said, yeah, and I brought him out some food and drinks. She told the station Chapman said the boy wouldn't talk about his parents. She didn't push, hoping she wouldn't scare him away. If you're that hungry, I want him to come to me because at least I know he was eating, she said. No, I'm stopping them right there. You call the police if there's a child sleeping on a slide outside that needs food. You call the police. Oh, well, this is true. People don't trust CPS, that's why. As much as the CPS and their hands are tied with all this type of stuff, you still got to call them, everybody. They can do something. Like, especially in this type of situation, you call them and they're going to get those kids out of there. They can do that. If you guys are just joining, we're talking about the 3 kids were left in an apartment abandoned by their mother for months and months and months while their 9-year-old brother, who was killed by the boyfriend, rotted in the other room. Well, I think that if it's been a year, right, he likely killed the boy. Okay, it's probably what happened. Then they left and just left. And then no one reported it. Went for a year. He probably told the kid, I'll tell the cops it was you if you say anything. That's probably what he did, right? Probably told the kid that. So that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I got that video, Will. I got that one. I'll take a look at it after. Thanks. Yeah, the police should have been called. Here's the thing in low-income areas and neighborhoods, especially where I grew up, nobody calls the cops. They don't want to call the cops. They don't trust the cops. They don't trust CPS. And that's systemic. And that needs to change. There needs to be maybe another thing that they can call. I don't know. Well, Tawny, they said that there's a maintenance guy that kept going around, but he just skipped over that apartment. Yeah, and the mother was living with the boyfriend 15 miles away in another apartment while these kids literally were left to die. She should be, they should be charged for not only murder, but attempted murder. They should be they should go to jail for the rest of their living lives. They should never be allowed to see the light of day ever again. I don't care. The mother is free? Are you serious? I was always told, Mel Gypsy, never trust CPS and cops as well. I was told that. I was absolutely told that. And I know I was told that. I was told that because my mother was scared that if CPS did show up at her house, or CAS, where it's called where I'm from, that like she would be in huge trouble. I often would use that. I'm calling child services as like a threat to her when we got in fights, because she would like often leave me alone for days at a time. And I'm like, I'm going to call CAS, and she would just give me money or scare me into not calling them. So I know what these kids are going through, like to the degree of like they felt scared that they would be separated. And when you go through such a trauma, the trauma bond that they have together is so strong. Not only their brother and sister, this 15-year-old feels responsible for his siblings and shouldn't be, okay? And is so scared. I can't even imagine the turmoil and trauma that kid's going to go through. I can't even imagine. She better not have been released. I think, Danielle, you can drop kids off at hospitals, fire departments, police stations. For sure you can. Absolutely. Any mandated reporter, any place that has like a first responder, I would do that. I mean, I can't believe these people knew and they didn't call the police. Haley Has Hope says tens of thousands of children go missing from the system every year in the U.S. The system is beyond broken. And I guarantee you about 98% of those kids are trafficked. That's why. Because they're not tracked. They're like, oh, they ran away or whatever, because those kids are already troubled. This is one part of our society that we all know something's wrong, and rarely do we ever talk about it. We all know that it's disgusting. Specifically parents who foster and adopt, they know. Kids who grew up in the system, we know. Okay? But we don't talk about how disgusting it is, and how these kids are just forgotten because they're the forgotten kids. I mean, there's no other than they're the lost. And the government doesn't give a shit because it costs money. That's why. The mother is the problem. Obviously, the husband killed him, but the mother is just as guilty as far as I'm concerned. How does she knows he did it? She lives with him, abandons her other kids. How are you gonna have 4 kids and abandon them? I hope prison is not good to these people. Kristen Glabensky, there needs to be more healthy foster families available. I think any foster parent that does it for the kids. Like, you got Tommy in the chat here. My boy Tom has fostered, I think, what, Tom? You've been fostering for, what, 10 years? Tom is the saint, okay? There he is. Tommy's a saint. Mark Crenny, my boy, he's been fostering for 2.5 years now. These are the people that do this out of the kindness of their heart, and they don't need the money. They absolutely, I know Tom and Mark don't need the money. They don't do it from the money, that's for sure. And the people who do it are saints, and they're amazing, but some don't, okay? And again, we have to talk about that. There are lots of people who foster kids into their homes. They have these homes, and they're basically halfway houses, right? They are places they bring these kids in, they treat them like shit, they take all the subsidies. I mean, if you have 15 kids in a house, your subsidies you don't need to go, that's like 60 grand, 100 grand a year that you're bringing in, okay? And they're treated terribly. A lot of them are just like ignored, okay? Their families like Crazy Pieces and Crazy Middles, who continually bring in foster kids, show their faces on TV, adopt them, and they make massive subsidies, but they exploit them in a different way. They exploit them by putting them on video and sharing their privacy with the world and their stories that shouldn't be shared with the world. Okay, they have cameras all over their house. Some of those kids leave. Some of them run away. As soon as they turn 18, they leave. Those kids are exploited, and everybody's like, well, they got a better life. Do they? Do they have a better life? Yeah? Once all their privacy is out for the world to see, that's a better life? No, I'm sorry. See, Abigail, I hope I'm glad this is the case in Missouri, but it's not the case in where Crazy Pieces Middles, I think they're in Arizona or something. They can have as many as they want. It's through the Mormon church. The fact that Gabriel Fernandez's case didn't wake this country up is how flawed CPS is. Exactly. And CPS got off scot-free. Did they not, Will? I have to watch the documentary. I have not seen it yet. But they got off. They were not to blame. They said, no problem here. Nothing to see here, everybody. Don't believe your eyes. Sherry B., this is such a sad story. You went through 15 foster homes and they're all abusive. All of them. And that is systemic in foster care, okay? There are more bad foster places than there are good, and out by far, okay? And there's an issue coming up, and I don't know if I'll get banned for saying this. They get $700 per kid until they're 18. Until, well, here in Canada, until they're 21. Unbelievable. But here's what I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it because I'm not going to tell you who told me this. But I know that in Canada, and in Ontario specifically, if you don't want to get the vaccine, and let me just preface this all by saying I am pro-vaccine. I'm double vaxxed. I'm like, I wear my mask. I do what I need to do. Guys, I'm telling you, I believe in the vaccination. I think you should get it. Just keep yourself safe. We talk about kids another day. But I also believe that it should never be mandated and you should be able to do what you want with your body. Okay? I believe that if you think you're healthy and all that and you want to get cool, right? And I specifically know in Ontario that there are thousands of families currently, I think November 1st is the cutoff date, that if you don't get vaccinated, they will take your foster kids away and you will not be allowed to foster anymore. Hear that for a second, everybody. Because you're not vaccinated, they will not let you foster kids. We're already overcrowded as far as foster care is concerned anyway, right? I think, Tommy, you would know better than I would. But you're already sitting here with a lack of enough good foster parents. And unfortunately, generally the really good ones are the ones who go to church. I know I say that and it's a blanket statement, but they're generally doing it for the right reasons, right? Because their faith is based. And unfortunately, also, a lot of Christians are also anti-mandate of this vaccination, okay? And so you're losing thousands, if not more than tens of thousands of families who will not be able to foster because they didn't get the vaccination. True flu shot as well. You support mandatory vaccinations, that's fine, but I don't. You basically, you're saying you support not being able to say what you want to put in your body, and that's okay. But yeah, and there's people who can't get the vaccine. And Amy, hear me out. If you can't, there is no exemptions in Ontario, no matter what. So if you can't, you cannot foster children. Meaning, there's going to be thousands, if not more than tens and tens of thousands of kids who will be forced to be put into overcrowded fostering systems because they won't allow a foster family who hasn't been vaccinated to have children to take care of them. Mennonites are the best. Well, Kristen, you might be right, but until it gets fought in the Supreme Courts in both our countries, unfortunately, that's the way it goes right now. And you're going to see a lot of that's going on. I just want to say, look, I'm anti-mandate, everybody. I'm anti-mandate. I'm pro-vaccine, anti-mandate. But I'm also, you have to do like a risk assessment here, okay? What's more important? Okay, a virus that does not really affect children at all, okay? Kids are safer from the vaccine than vaccinated adults. If you don't know the data, go look at it, okay? But we're going to look at the risk assessment here. What's more risky for a kid who's into the system? To be with an abusive foster system, probably going through a system that will abuse them, will spit them out on the other end, will not take care of them because they're in like like they're not in a home, they're in like a home. You know what I mean? They're in like a facility instead of a loving home. What's the risk assessment there? Who makes that choice to say, yeah, we would rather see these kids go cycle back through the system and be in homes that treat them terribly. Basically like prisons is what they are, okay? And none of them have a high success rate for these kids at all. The highest success rate are in mom and dad families, foster families. Highest success rate for not cycling back into the system. Okay, like by far and away. It's like, it's not even comparable. It's not even close, okay? And so now they'd say, well, you're not vaccinated, so you don't get to foster anymore, but we're going to throw these kids in a system that's going to hurt them even more. I'm pissed about it because people that I love and that I trust and that are close to me are being told that they can't help children because they don't get the vaccine. Yeah, CPS court is confidential, here's the thing about this case too that I really want to know, and I don't know if we'll ever be able to because there's always deals in minors. Here's another thing with CPS, CAS, and DCF, okay? None of these records can ever be shared to the public because it's dealing with minors. And so they also get a free pass on not being able to be held accountable because none of these records can be made public. What does DCF know about these kids and what's on file? Okay? Unfortunately, it's going to take a whistleblower to blow this shit wide open. They knew something was up in that house. Okay? There are files on these kids. And right now, DCF doesn't have to answer for any of that. They don't have to release those files because it deals with minors or open active investigations. That makes me super angry because what did they know? And they can get off scot-free. Oh, it's in court? It's on TV? With names and everything? Not here. You're not allowed to put pictures of foster kids' faces online. Nothing like that here. Christine, you're wrong about that. It's not getting to children. Children are safe from COVID for the majority. Something like 670 kids, over 17 million kids have died from COVID. It's like they have a higher likelihood of dying from getting struck by lightning than COVID. I'm sorry. That's just the data. That's just the data. It does not affect kids like people are saying it does. Okay? And if anything, and it's not spreading through kids like they say, like they think that it spreads through adults. So it's just not dangerous for kids. That's what I'm telling you. So it's stupid to take foster kids out of loving homes and put them in institutions, is what I'm saying. And again, I'm saying that from a position of pro-vaccination. I am pro-vaccine. I think you should get it. But I'm not going to, I don't think you should be forced to if you don't want to. I think you should be able to do what you want with your body. Guaranteed this video is definitely demonetized. I don't care. It's worth the conversation about this. She also has a daughter, according to her Facebook. I want to know where the daughter is and if she's safe. I'd like to see that Facebook too as well. I'm happy to see this data, Taylor, that there's kids in the ICU with COVID. And it would be all over the news. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not happening. Oh, they said mandatory vacations. Does anybody have this mother's Facebook? I'd like to go take a look at it. Anyway, this isn't a debate about vaccinations, guys. This is a debate about foster kids in the systems who prioritize political shit. They prioritize the moms and dads and the bio parents over the kids' safety. That's going to be the next topic. We're going to talk about that as well. Tommy says the biggest issue contributing to terrible foster homes is the lack of families willing to do it. They don't have enough good homes to place these kids, and Tom should know. Tom's a foster dad, okay? And it's true. Right? I know that I know a bunch of my friends foster and I've adopted, and like our circles are pretty tight, but there are people who do it for money and you can't deny it. And that's the problem. But here's another problem, and I talked about it today, is that often, and Tom, you'll know this, often you have to bring kids back to see their abusive parents, and it's mandated by law. And if you don't do it, you could lose your kids. Even if that parent hurt that child in big ways, they still want them to be connected to their abusive parents. It's insane. Yeah, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe. Tommy Hortons, we can't afford to blackball bad homes anymore, so we have to keep putting kids there. I don't know what that means. Bad homes. You don't have to be superhuman to do it. All these kids need is love and they will thrive. Exactly. Love is, I think if you think about this for a second, most kids are scared of the system until they get into a loving home and they get to experience something they've never experienced before. One of the main things that kids that come from these traumatizing situations is that they need stability, they need attention, and they need to be loved. But stability and like all that stuff that they know that you're going to come home at the end of the day, or when you get off the bus, your mom's going to be waiting there, or at 5:30 it's going to be dinner time, and on Saturdays we go to this and blah blah blah. These kids thrive in environments that it's just put together. When a kid lives in chaos like I did, and some of these kids likely did, okay, that is so conducive to like super trauma for these kids, and it turns anxiety, it turns into depression, it turns into massive problems that they have later. And that's why this government doesn't like kids cycling back into it. But if you're going to take away foster families because they didn't get the vaccination, I think you're doing it wrong, and it just needs to be called out. Yeah, some have never had dinner cooked for them. Some of them have never slept on a bed. What's the movie Blindside? You guys ever seen Blindside, when they adopted a kid to play football? And he's like, I've never had my own. She's like, your own room? And he's like, no, my own bed. And if you don't bawl your eyes out during Blindside, you're not a real human. Yeah, and this is another thing Crazy Cottage says, and they never show up their parental visits, which continues to hurt the kids, and yet you still have to go, even though they don't show up more than half the time, if not, some of them don't show up ever. I had a lady reach out to me, I forget her name, I asked her to come into the chat, she said she might. If you're in the chat, let me know. She said she dropped off the kid at a shelter, like an abused women's shelter or something like that, or was it a homeless shelter, okay? And then went back to get the kid, and the kid was gone. And she's never seen that kid since. Never seen the kid, and she said she was crying for months. Figure this out, people. Think about this for a second. Judges and these police, this whole thing needs to be overhauled, because shit like this keeps happening. And they won't overhaul it because it's government. So privatize it. Yeah, court mandated visits. And a lot of people will be like, yeah, no, you know what? You lost your right to be a parent, as far as I'm concerned. Your kids have been taken away from you by the government because you are a piece of shit, okay? So you at that point, I don't care. Like, I know we have to, but I don't care. You should not have any rights anymore. And the judges will just side with the biomoms more than you guys will ever know. It's actually mind-blowing and super infuriating for those people who see what those kids have gone through. Some of those kids don't want to go see their parents, and they're forced to, okay? It is crazy. Yep, Josh Powell. CPS are super involved, and that still gave him back. Yeah, Kylene or whatever it is. My husband and I have raised 2 nephews and 3 nieces on and off for 13 years. CPS always hands the kids back until the next screw up. Yeah. And again, like I said today, that parent could have had all their kids taken away, and then they can have another kid, and it's just like, oh yeah, fresh start. New case. That kid is a new person, a new case, and that mom could have that kid. It is insane. The system is broken. Yeah. If you're an adopted parent out there, everybody, holler, I'm going to send you some peanut butter. Okay, I'm going to send you some Kraft peanut butter because you deserve it. You deserve it to treat yourself. You're amazing, unless you're crazy pieces and crazy middles. But I even got to give them a little bit of like, okay, at least those kids are in a safer place. I'll say that. But I still think they're getting absolutely exploited. I know everyone says forced sterilization. However, the government should have zero control over it. But yeah, I can't advocate for forced sterilization if I can't say, hey, you can mandate vaccines. I can't do that. I would be a hypocrite. Leah, you're a foster parent. You reach out. I'm gonna send you some. I'm gonna hook you up. Foster parents are the friggin' backbone of our countries. I promise you that. So many kids cycle back in because they don't get placed with loving homes. Again, if you guys don't think that loving homes for foster kids is not conducive for success, you're wrong. It's like high levels of massive success for those kids. Please look into the Groves case. It happened a few years ago in Ohio. CPS messed up. There's there's probably millions of cases that CPS messed up on. Again, these kids are files. They're case numbers. They're not CPS. Like, they're not superhumans. Those people see the worst of the worst of the worst. The turnover rate for CPS agents must be insane. When you get handed a case file that someone else has been working on, it's new to you, right? These people cycle through because they don't get the proper therapies that they need. They don't get treated right. They don't get paid correctly. Their jobs are dangerous. I couldn't imagine going into some of these places and seeing what these kids go through and have it not affect me. Of course it affects them. What's different? It's different, Josh. Letting them have more kids hurts children? You mean having like 20 kids? All the mess really comes selfish, maybe, but I'm going to say it's failed government policies. It's red tape. It's people who have to follow the rules that, you know what? CPS's hands are tied more times than they're not. And CPS will go in for the worst cases and the worst. And then, you know, if there's a level 10, those kids get taken care of. But kids who are level like 7 to 9 should be taken too, they don't, right? You got people like Daniel Cohn, Piper Raquel, and all these kids who should not be in their parents' care, and they don't give a crap. They just don't care. Hey, represent, Laura Lee. Well, you don't need, you're from Oshawa. You can get that peanut butter at the grocery store. Tommy's right. There are tons of kids waiting for adoption in our own cities, in your city, guys. People are too scared and have such a tainted view of foster kids. The narrative needs to change. It's not for everybody, Tom. I'll give you that. You're right. But it's definitely, again, if you have it in your heart, in your home, in the spare room, in your heart, in your home for love, I promise you, it's one of the most rewarding things you'll ever do. I tried to take my nephew who was abused by his dad, but my brother threatened to sue me. He's a jerk. Nephew is now grown and safe, but hangs out with my ugh, sucks. Mandy Candy's in the chat. Where's Mandy Candy? What's that mean? Who's that? This is disgusting. I lost my babysitting job when I became a foster parent because the parents didn't want their children exposed to foster. That's disgusting. You dodged a bullet there, though. Those people are disgusting. Adoption can be expensive, yes. In Canada, though, if you adopt, they pay you. So... I know you're against CPS, but my daughter was a social worker for CPS and got fired for protecting kids she refused to let child... Yeah, no, I'm not against CPS and DCF. I mean, not the workers. I'm against the institutions and the red tape and all the government shit they have to go through and all the hand tying and all that stuff. I'm not mad at CPS workers. Those people are the salt of the earth. Generally, some of them are lazy, okay? Obviously, because kids are falling through the cracks. But I think more often than not, it's just that their hands are tied. They did what they tried to do, and the court denied it. That's the thing. So I'm not against CPS and DCF. I just feel like on the contrary, I feel like they should be more funded. They should have more training. They should be treated like heroes. Imagine we treated DCF and CPS workers like sports stars and rock stars. They would feel good about the world. But too often they go into places where they're hated, right? People who are terrible people and treat their kids bad hate DCF and CPS. They hate these people. These people get treated like trash. Their jobs are dangerous. They're thankless because they're unrecognized in our societies. Okay? People attach a stigma to foster kids. Well, yeah, there is, because with most fostering and adoption cases, unfortunately, comes trauma, because those kids often come from generational trauma, but they come from trauma of some sort. If they were removed from their parent, that's due to some craziness that the parent did. That trauma is going to stick with those kids for a long time. It is not easy. I'm not telling you guys fostering and adoption is easy. It's not. It's really difficult. But those kids will have trauma because of what happened. Erica says, I know a CPS worker that was high up in her area. She adopted a baby in less than 3 days after the baby was born. I feel like anyone else would have taken much longer. Yeah, they do get... That's true. I've heard of that too. Mel Gypsy, fostering, if you got the space, again, if you can take care of kids, it's one of the most rewarding things you'll ever do. It's so important. But I can't imagine, like Tommy thinks fostered 10 kids or 11. Mark's done like 3 or 4. I can't imagine fostering a kid for years and then giving that kid back. I would die. Like, it's just no way I could do it. Adoption, that's what we did. I could never give them back because just they're in your heart now. So fostering takes an extra special superhero as far as I'm concerned. Adoption is expensive for those who want to adopt like newborns and shit. Like they don't want to go through this. They want like the fresh ones, right? Fostering to adopt is free and often you get paid for it. So it's not that difficult. Trauma is like, and trauma often doesn't rear its ugly head until later on in their lives. When your kids start turning like old enough to understand like more about their life, like who's my dad, who's my, like my, they start asking questions. They start thinking they're not valuable because their parents didn't want them or their parents didn't treat them right. It gets really hard. Yeah, if you foster, you definitely, for the first, you get, like, Tom could probably answer this better, but yeah, you're, like, visits all the time. You gotta have, like, fire hoses in your house and shit. You gotta be, like, compliant. It's true. That's true, Tom. Kelsey says, I'm 27. I'm just unfolding my trauma. Same with me when I was 30. Happened when I was 30. I didn't realize that what I grew up in was wrong until I was so late in life and realizing, shit, man, that wasn't normal. That was normal for me because that's what I grew up in, right? That the trauma, that experience was normal to me. Imagine having that be normal for you. This kid lives with his dead sibling, taking care of his other brothers and sisters. That's normal for him, guys. That shouldn't be normal for these kids. That's the problem. We as human beings are super malleable. We're very adaptive, and we're adapted to bad situations. That's the scariest part of this. And these kids think it's normal. And then we get out of that situation into a loving home. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened to me. Alan, we're talking about fostering adoption, DCF, CPS, and the kids in Texas who were failed. Just insane. Did you have a breakdown? How did you figure out it wasn't normal? I actually developed generalized anxiety disorder and panic attacks, and I had to see a therapist about it. And he's like, well, shit, man. Tell me about your childhood. And then I told him, he's like, well, there you go. That explains it. Yeah, PTSD is a big one, especially for kids with trauma. Of course it is. Yeah, this is me too, Melissa. That's what Tom said. Can't use that as an excuse to help somebody. Don't. You can always keep, I think not always, but generally, if you have a good relationship, you can keep an open line of communication with those kids you fostered. That's true. Leah has a good point. It's so hurtful when people say they couldn't do it because they'd get too attached. I always want to say, you think we don't get attached? The kids get attached too. I don't think that people are trying to be hurtful here, Leah. I think people are like honestly saying like that I said it and I like because I have attachment disorder because of my trauma, right? So it might be different for me, but dang, that is something that people consider like, I don't know if I can do that. But Tom says, and he's right, they need the attachment. You are the adult, you can handle it. Right? You got to be able to come around. And again, it probably gets easier, Tom, right? You've done 13 kids. Tom, it gets a little easier because you understand what you're doing and the value of what you're doing, and that you know that those kids generally are going off to a better situation because they're being adopted, right? Hopefully. Yeah, this is a really good point. It's not about you. It's about the kid. Guarantee. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I know this kind of got into a conversation with CPS and stuff, DCF, but if you guys have more questions about what's going on over in Texas, it is an insane story. And can anybody confirm if the mother's out of jail? Because that would be insane. You watched another girl punch her young child in the private area over scratch. Yeah, I mean, we were in the 80s and late 80s and early 90s, man. We were abused. Like, kids were abused, and it was normal. Kids in like low income areas and that come from different walks of life. Like, I remember I got beat when I was a kid with the belt. I got the wooden spoon, I got the fly swatter and everything else. And I was like, that was normal for me. Man, we had our best friend was a Jamaican family that lived right above us, okay? And the things they beat their kids with, and that was normal, was the most insane thing I've ever seen. I did a video a little while ago. I got flagged for it, okay? It was a barber shop, and 2 kids came in and stole something from this barber shop, and the barber shop owner took those kids and beat them. And all the parents were there like, yeah, that's what you got to do. You got to beat the kids. So, jeez. Anyone get the belt? Everybody got the belt. If you're over 40, you got the belt. I will never, ever, ever lay a hand on any of my kids in a violent way. Ever. Tommy got the wooden spoon. Yeah, that's so sad, Cass. I got thrown against a wall 6 feet into a drywall and smashed my head against it. I can tell you guys some stories. But this isn't sad fishing, guys. But at the same time, the issue here is that so many people come from generational trauma, and the system is made to not really talk about it. They don't really want to talk about it, because you know why they don't want to talk about it, everybody? Because it's expensive. That's why. This is all that matters, and I talked about it today. Instead of hiring 87,000 new IRS agents, why don't you hire 150,000 CPS agents and train them properly? Holy. You had wooden paddles in the classroom? What are you, 75? Oh, Taylor, yeah, you're 23. Yeah, there's kids I know now that get beat. And you know, generally, and I'm not saying this is as a blanket statement, but lower income areas, generally, the type of parent that they are, and because I grew up there, and my boys did, so I can speak from experience, that those are the kids that are the ones getting beat a lot. They are. There's a video I covered, and it's my first YouTube strike I ever got. It was a mother went on YouTube Live. Her daughter had done something, and she beat her daughter with a belt for like 20 minutes on Instagram Live. Okay? And she was like just relentlessly beating her. And it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. She's like, yeah, tell your friends not to. And she was just, it broke your heart. And the police had called me, and I'm not sure if they followed up on it, but that girl should be in jail. You should never hit your kids. I'm sorry. Hitting anybody, not even just kids, anybody, is violence and should never be acceptable. What, you think that it's because lower income parents are more stressed? Nope. I think it's because that's what they learned. I think bad decision making often puts people in lower income situations. Like it's definitely cyclical. What you learn is what you know. Or what you're taught is what you know, sorry. And those bad decisions are often, you know, I could do a test. In my opinion on it, of course, is just that these people make bad choices. Not everybody who's poor makes bad choices, but I'm saying that often with these people who have tons of kids and, you know, get in Ontario, okay, if you have a bunch of kids and you're poor, they give you money for every kid. I think it's something like, what is it, Tom, like $1,000 a kid or something like that? If you are poor and on welfare and you have children, the government also gives you $1,000 baby bonus every month for each kid that you have, depending on your social wherever you are in the rank. So a lot of people just have kids just to collect money, and they beat them and abuse them because people are abusive. I'm not just saying poor people are, because there are rich people too who do this stuff to their kids. But I generally, in my circles of parents where I live now, and I'm a very affluent area where I live, and all the parents are involved in the school and all this stuff, and from what I know, none of them ever touch their child in an aggressive or abusive way like that. I've never seen it. Like, they might, time out you, you're gonna not get cotton candy next week, or it's pretty vanilla, the punishments that you see around here. But I'd rather that than ever have to beat your children, and you should never beat your children. It is systemic, it's cyclical, so. It's generational. It's exactly what it is. You are taught that's how to behave, and you ever just, like, as a parent, all the parents out there, you ever have a moment where you're like, I just realized I'm my parent, when you, like, say something and you're like, I thought I'd never do that. No, I don't think that anybody that is from a poor family of poverty is abusive. I think there's a difference between, I'm only speaking from my experience, okay? Because I grew up in some of the most insane situations, okay? And so I often will speak from that experience, and sometimes I make blanket statements just because it's my experience. But I've moved, guys, 35 times in my life or more. And I just want to point out that I've moved to so many places and met so many people, and it's always been my experience. There's never just one place that I had one that wasn't the same as the other. That's why it was so normal to me. It was so normal to me to see this type of behavior in my mom's friends with their kids, and we all kind of had the same thing, and it was normal to us until you step outside of it for one day. And I had a best friend. His name was Colin. And I remember they had a nice house, they had a pool. They weren't wealthy, but they were middle class, upper middle class, and they treated their kids normally. And it was like, what is this existence? It was so foreign to me. And I think anybody who grew up in that type of world, especially in the 80s and 90s, it does have to do with an era too. I think more parents now are even, no matter what, are way more exposed to good parenting because they can, see the influencers and stuff online. But yeah, I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit. Because I will never agree with spanking, but if you're going to spank, I hope you have a good excuse, because violence never has ever solved anything properly, ever. It just teaches your kids that being violent is an answer. Violence creates more violence. Always does. So I don't think there's ever an excuse to ever hit a child ever. There are so many other things you can do before it gets to violence. And I know people are like, I spank with love. I'm sorry, it's violence. If you are exerting force and hurting a person with violence and with your body to their body, that is violence. And there's just never going to be an excuse for it. Yeah, there's way more education now. Of course there is. Lots more online. You can access it. So. I think too, in lower income areas, there's a lot more drug use and alcohol abuse as well. That will play into it. Countries who banned spanking saw a decrease in violent crime. That's interesting, actually. But did we see if there's anybody in this chat who actually works for CPS or DCF who wants to come in the chat and wants to talk to me about how their hands are tied? Because, or ex-workers, because I know some of you don't want to lose your jobs, and so you want to be really careful. But I'm happy to bring someone who worked in and can talk about from a balanced perspective. I'm not looking to hate or bash, but there are people who know how the system works, right? It's a very heavy subject. Yes, it is. Yeah, I agree with this, Rose. Having no boundaries or rules doesn't help these kids either. The disrespect to teachers is on an increase. Yes, these kids are growing up, and I've talked about this many times. There's got to be a balance, but it can never come from violence. Never, in my opinion. Take that from somebody who was beat. So I want to go back to the story real quick. The reason we're talking about this is because these kids were absolutely failed. And if anybody knows if these files can be released about what DCF had and what file they had on these people, because I know that the parents are going to be held accountable, and likely they should, and spend the rest of their lives in jail for sure. Okay? But DCF and the people that failed these kids also should be held accountable, and often they're not. Does anybody know why DCF and CPS are likely let off? Do they have some kind of rule or law that allows them to be like, well, because we deal with so many cases, it's just the way it works? Is that how that works? Yeah, I was in foster care my whole entire childhood. Few good families, but just wanted the money and abused to hide us. Yeah, I've seen it time and again. This is another one. Hey, it's Steph says, I just want to know, did these kids have no family? Wondering where they were. Where was their grandma? Anyone? I mean, it's likely, yeah. Again, the poverty place we lived in, we didn't have connections with our grandmothers and grandparents. Not really. Because they're often estranged from their families because they burn their damn bridges all the time. That's my experience again. I'm saying that. So, yeah. I would never if I had a good relationship with my children, okay, I'm not going to let them live in like low-income housing. I'm going to help them. Okay. Have I missed something about research? Again, Joanna, if you're going to come say something like that, back it up. What are you talking about? What did I miss? What did I get wrong? Most likely because it costs the county time and money to train. Yeah, it's true. And I'm pretty sure, Joanna, too, that I know a lot about this because I grew up in it. So I actually have hands-on experience. I don't know about you, but I do. The county gets more money for keeping kids away from their families? I don't know. You sure about that? Yeah, this is what I thought. DCF records are not public to protect the child's privacy. That's what I thought. There's a child. Yes, there is a cause of death for the child who died was blunt force trauma. Abigail Davidson says there are so many people involved when it comes to this. And maybe that's a problem. Again, that's red tape, that's bureaucracy. There are things that don't need to be there because it's any bureaucracy that's owned by the government, okay? It's a big giant ass waste of money all the time. It's just a big effing waste of money. The government doesn't do anything right. Ever. That's the research I got. If the foster parents care, they should get the shot. No mandates. Sorry. I believe that foster parents in loving homes far outweigh if they don't want to get the vaccine. It's far, far, far more advantageous to let them be foster parents and not just get the vaccine. I don't care what you say. I don't know if you know, but the mother and boyfriend was arrested. Yes, we did. We saw the video of them being arrested, and the guy looks like a super winner. He's a winner for sure. Off subject, but I will send you a private picture of my beautiful kiddos with the peanut butter when I get out. Awesome. I'm coming to Florida in a couple weeks. I'm bringing a whole suitcase full of peanut butter and ketchup chips with me so that I don't have to ship it from Canada. No, people do not get money for putting kids up for adoption. Not as far as I'm aware, Laura. I don't think so. I think there's like some skirted rules for like teen moms who are having kids that they can be taken care of if they're gonna give that baby to the family. Like there are some things that do happen. I know that something happened at my church locally with a kid. She was gonna give her up for adoption to this family. So as soon as she was born, she went to this family, and that family took very good care of this teenager, is what I'm saying. You're not allowed to be paid for it, because that would create, holy cow, that would create some craziness. Oh yeah, our peanut butter is the bomb. But you can pay foster families. Adopted families in Canada also get paid too. If you take in siblings, you get paid. Yeah, COVID insanity. A damn vaccine is more important than a loving home. I couldn't have said it better myself. Exactly. I'm a birth mother. Placed my child when I was 17. He's now 16 years old and thrives. See, you did something amazing, Erica, and you should be celebrated for that. Yeah, craft peanut butter is life. Amen to that. Yeah, I can see you. What's up? Yeah, if you're doing it right, the money goes into taking care of the kids. A lot of unfortunately, and I'm going to say something that might cause you guys some consternation. The best foster families and adoption families are ones who are wealthy, because they don't need the money. That's just the way it is. If you were going to foster because you think it's good to make money, then don't do it. I did see the last email, but it's under a paywall, so I can't see it. It costs the state so much money for each kid in foster care, especially if they're residential placement. Sometimes the parents can be expected to pay child support. Wow. This is another good point that we didn't really talk about. It costs the state a lot of money to put kids in foster care. Each kid represents thousands of dollars. And I get that, but I don't care. Put more money into it. It's necessary. So put more. It's just the way it is. It's never going to change. So put more. The kids need it. It's better for your society. Paywall means I can't look at the thing without paying. Chronically, Christy, I've been waiting to watch the trials of Gabrielle, and I think it's going to break my heart, and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'm ready. I feel like, man, I watched Ron's Gone Wrong in the theater the other day, and I don't know if I haven't had a good cry in a while or something, but I'm bawling my eyes out in these movies of these kids getting bullied, and I don't know if I'm if I have a headspace right now to watch something like that. I don't know. I'm not trying to be a baby or anything, but dang. The state will do anything they can not to take custody of the child. They will even settle a friend of the family. Yeah, they will do that. Yep, they do. And honestly, Will, that's good, because the state sucks at everything. The provinces, the crown, the federal government, they are terrible. It's probably better. Let's be real, okay? Because they can't do anything about it. They're always tied with bureaucracy and red tape, always. And they waste money. Some names are in green because they're members, I think. Yeah. He was locked in a cupboard. Oh my gosh. You know what? I'll watch it and then we'll do a video. We'll do a live on it. We'll discuss it. Bailey writes, I agree that that's partially why the system is intended to keep families together. Usually they try to get them, yes, but specifically here in Ontario, they're trying to be like, the mother has to basically be like, I don't even know. Like, they give her chance after chance after chance after, it's almost like unlimited chances. Until at one point, the people are just like, at one point, families will often just stop going to court, the people who adopted, and then the moms or the parents are too lazy to fight it. And so that's what happens. They give them unlimited chances, and shouldn't, is what I'm saying. You're a CPS worker, Lily. You want to come on and chat? Are you able to without getting in trouble? You don't have to come on video. You can just come on voice if you want. I am a mentor to 3 of 5 surviving siblings, and I don't know what that means. The kind of trauma never heals. Yeah. No. That's right. That's another thing. AC just says, you know what, guys, if you don't want to foster or adopt, that's fine. I mean, it's really difficult. But you know what you can do? You can volunteer at like Big Brother and Sisters and places that are mentors for these kids. That is really cool. Like, and you can likely do more mentoring if you're very close to them and like develop these bonds. That's another thing you can do if you don't want to commit to fostering, is to be a mentor in your community to these kids. There's lots of programs like that. Wait, I missed that. Ace. Wait, who was the lady that said that she was a CPS worker? Lily Mason. Lily, you know, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to come on and like. I'm not looking to bash CPS. I'm just literally looking to understand. Maybe even a day in the life, what you guys have seen, or some stories that you've seen, and like how hard it is. Yeah, Big Brother and Sister, they don't advertise enough. I don't have any money to do it, but there's huge, huge opportunities. Sports, Big Brother and Sister, like taking a kid to learn something. Oh my gosh, it's my wife did it for school. Maybe I'll do it. Elizabeth Newberg, as well as a CPS worker. You guys want to come on? Yeah. School liaison teacher, trying to get parents. Yeah, you can volunteer at schools. That's a big one too. Yeah, if you want to come on the show, you don't have to come on. You can change your name and you can just come on with voice. You don't have to show your face. Abigail, you're a CPS person? It is different, but I mean, for the most part, they're likely very similar. Very similar. I know it's not federal, but they likely pull from one central database of like information and red tape. Someone writes this, and she doesn't want to be shown. Says, "Hi Josh, I wanted to reach out because I cannot speak on your live due to possibly losing my job, but I am something at DCF in another place, and they are taught and trained under a concept that you cannot save every child. And they are told that if you need to fall back on a case, it will be okay, as long as you eventually reach out again. But at least here, there's not a time limit for falling back. Very important. Thanks, Mel." Hit the thumbs up, everybody. Smash the subscribe button as well. Okay. Oh, okay. Here, Mandy, I'm going to give you the link here. I sent it to your Instagram. I think you're the one with the case, the story, right? Yeah, Mandy's got the story. This is a crazy story. Broke my heart just to read the comment. South Florida has a huge problem with foster kids being kept in hotels. A few years back, I was laid off due to lack of funds. Laid off from being a foster family? Hey, Tiff. See, the judges are a big part of this. Judges are, again, they have to follow the law. It's not like they're doing it personally. They have to follow the law, and the law says the mom is the bond. That's like the main thing. The science does not support it anymore, though, as far as I'm concerned. And they're still basing this stuff off psychological shit from like 70s and 80s. So it's definitely not keeping up with the times. Yeah, CPS burnout is huge. I can totally understand CPS burnout, especially the turnover and the emotional stress. I just think it would be hard to keep knowing how much emotional stress kids. Yeah, exactly. That can't be easy. Catherine Green, when I'm older and more stable, I'd like to foster and adopt children since I have no desire to have biological. Hey, that's amazing. Incredible. Elizabeth, I can send you a link. Just the link right here. Oh, you would provide healthcare services as a nurse to foster. Wow, and they laid you off? Nice. Talk about priorities. Yeah, Heidi Foley, this is correct. The courts try to keep their kids with their family. Yes, but I'm not just saying like aunt, uncle, grand. Yes, that's true. And my boys are my biological nephews. But I'm saying that the courts also try to give the mom, generally the mom, because it's generally how it works, like a million chances. Like she can mess up a million times and judge like, we'll try again. Try again. It's crazy. My little sister had 3 little boys taken for reasons that they made up. But why? Like it's like they don't have enough on their plates that they go and do it. Why? Nick's Mary Brown, high-profile case in New York City. The courts do everything in their power to place with kin. That's true. I have a question, though. If you knew only $1,000 is all it costs to help a bio family that also loves that keep them, would you help? I mean, there's also a fine line between enabling, right? You got to be really careful what you do with money with poor families and enabling parents. That's why CPS is really careful about who they give money to and how it gets dispersed and stuff like that. So, oh, here we go. Hey, oh, let me get my headphones on here for a second. Who do we got in the chat? Who do we got here? Oh, let me unmute your mic. Give me a second. Oh, you have to unmute your mic.
Hello.
Who do we got?
Elizabeth.
So, Elizabeth, what is it that you do?
So, I've been a worker for about 6 years now.
Okay.
It's interesting, you know, personally, I've grown up in the system, so it really made me want to do it. And there's definitely a lot of slippery slopes that we go through and a lot of problems that need to be fixed for sure.
Right. And so is it a problem when it comes to, like, are there things where your hands are tied where you think that they should not be tied?
Most definitely. So, um, a generalized situation here, but there was a situation where the dad was fully set up to take the kid, but you are always more slanted to side with the mother
Yeah.
in the situation.
Yep.
So even though he was fully set up, working and everything, and she was kind of just collecting from the government,
Yep.
we had to place the kid with their mom, even though the dad was better for them overall.
Well, and who makes that decision?
So it ends up, they pretty much look at everything on paper necessarily and just see it as, well, one person can be around all day with the kid and one person will have to put them in childcare to work and to provide for the kid. So they see it's better for the kid to be around a family member all day rather than in a childcare.
That bothers me because that's not necessarily the case. Just because they can be around doesn't mean that they're good. And so you can't, as a CPS worker or whatever, you can't make that call. Like, who do you, like, you get this case on your docket, okay? Who do you bring that to, and who makes that decision?
So most of the time you will have to, unless like you are completely okay with the situation, you have to try to appeal it. And the chances of it being appealed are not very high, because at that point then another caseworker will have to join the case and look at everything over again and pretty much everything you did, and most of the time they just would rather it be finished and the kid be placed rather than continue it.
Okay. Well, interesting for sure. And that's, I mean, I appreciate your take on that. And again, I don't think there's anything against, I think that you guys are often, how do you deal with the stress, knowing that you see that it's probably not likely the best place for the kid, but you have to do it. How do you deal with that as a human?
It's definitely really hard. You kind of just have to definitely pray a lot and, try to give the parent the kid is placed with all the resources you can. But most of the time, they do not take them seriously and do not use them.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. That's a couple questions. I got Mandy Candy waiting in the wings, but I really appreciate you coming on. That takes a lot of guts to do that. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. See you later. Awesome. Okay. So I should ask you guys if you have questions about stuff like that too. Okay, Mandy's coming in soon. I don't know who Amy is, and she lost respect for me. Did she say why? Not that it matters. I mean, you can't win everybody over. Lily, are you the CPS agent as well? Okay. Okay, I'm going to bring Mandy in. Hey, Mandy, how are you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good. So
just forewarning, my kids are fighting me, so I might have to mute my mic at some point and go chase them down.
So tell me about your story. Tell me about this case that you told me about earlier in the comments. You said something crazy. Tell the people what you said, because it's insane.
Okay, yeah. So I'll start from the beginning. I knew the mom from high school. She moved up to Michigan from, coincidentally, Florida. And she has two older children too. The oldest one is very autistic. He needs, extra is what my point is.
Right.
And then there's the little girl and then the baby. So I hadn't seen this girl in probably a year or two. I don't even know. And all of a sudden one day she shows up at my house out of the blue. So obviously I invite them in, and I notice it's like the dead of summer, like so hot outside. And both her older kids are in dirty sweatshirts, long sleeve pants, and then, so I'm like, she goes in, she comes in the house right away. She goes straight to the bathroom to do her makeup because she's going to meet some guy. Okay. Yeah. So while she's in there, I'm like going through my kids. I just had my second baby. I'm going through all my kids' clothes, like changing her kids, cleaning her kids up, giving them food, So she's telling me how she's going it's downstate. It's like maybe 2-3 hours away from here to visit this guy.
Okay.
She doesn't know him. And I wanted to obviously keep all the kids, but this baby was most important because she had this 5-month-old little boy. And at 5 months old, you know, they should be rolling around and moving their head and maybe even crawling sometimes. So this baby was like a newborn, like the size of a newborn, couldn't move, couldn't hold his head up. He was wheezing so bad. I was like terrified, like just holding him. He was soaked from his armpits down. And remember, I told you he can't move. So I went to change his diaper and he had sand in his diaper, all rashy. Don't know how that happened. Jeez. So the most I could do is I talked her into letting me babysit. It's like 3 kids is a lot of stress. You know, you're going to have fun. Like, let me keep the baby at least. So she let me keep the baby. She goes down, leaves him for over a week.
Wow.
She called, I think. No, she didn't call at all. I called her once. Didn't check on him or anything. And she knew he was sick and wheezing. I left out that when she pulled up smoking cigarettes in the car with all the children.
Yep.
So anyways, she comes back up to town. Her older 2 kids were still wearing the same clothes that I put on them. She's going back down to Traverse City. That's her plan. She was coming to get the baby and go back down. I begged her, just let me keep the baby. He's sick. I asked her to write me a note so I could take him to the doctor and everything. She did. And luckily he went to the same doctor my children go to. So I knew them. I took him in there, and that's when I discovered that he had gained I want to say it was 2 weeks. It was about 2 weeks later. Yeah. So he had gained 3 pounds in that 2 weeks that he was with me.
Wow.
We looked at his charts. He had gained like 2 pounds his entire 5 months of life.
Wow.
Entire 5 months.
And I think you'll see that a lot in case of trauma and not abandon. What's the word I'm looking for? When you neglect, is that it's failure to thrive, and you'll see failure to thrive, and failure to thrive can happen for the first 5 years of a kid's life.
Exactly. Yeah.
If it's not addressed.
So, you know, obviously she already had CPS. She was already working with them. So the doctor informed me of that. And, you know, I asked him, like, well, isn't that a problem? She said, well, usually we don't really look at it too much unless, you know, it's like how it was, a drastic change, you know? And so anyways, so the baby's wheezing and sick. So they had me go up to the local hospital to get all these chest x-rays, which I don't know if you've ever had to give a baby chest x-rays. That alone is just so sad to watch. They basically put them in a plastic tube, their arms up to their ears, and the baby's screaming. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know these doctors. Most traumatic thing ever for probably him and I.
For what's it called, for cystic fibrosis, and it was like it was so hard.
It's terrible. So another like week or 2 or something goes by, and she had to meet with CPS. So they ended up meeting at my house, and CPS, you know, like checked it all out. You know, obviously it's a safe home and everything. And she was telling me, because I'm not a family member. You were talking about that earlier, how they want like family members. So it never even got to the point, like I never took any money, like that's not what it's about, you know. And I even I was like trying to tell them, I'm like, I don't need anything. Just like, let me take care of this baby. She has no family around. So if it was either me or her, you know, and they let me keep the baby for another week or 2, you know. And then she was supposed to come up, and she's like on the line about to get her kids taken. And she's down wherever. And all of a sudden she's had some type of involvement with the police. Like she was getting accused of like stealing from this place she was staying at, all this crazy stuff. She had her other 2 kids with her, all this. So she missed her thing anyways to get her baby. So I still had him. We were actually on our way out. It was late at night. We were on our way out to a close friend of ours to go to like a bonfire, make s'mores with the kids and stuff. And I get a call from the CPS lady. And that's when she told me that I needed to turn around immediately, bring him to they do what they can. It's a homeless shelter, but it's a homeless shelter down in the middle of downtown. You know, I had to drop him off dark, middle of the night. She had nothing for him. And that's the last time I saw him. I tried to get a hold of her on Facebook. Here's a fun little kicker for the end of the story. I tried to get a hold of her, and the first time and only time I did, I noticed she had some new boyfriend she had moved in with to get out of this homeless shelter. I have to point out that they are Guyanese, so they're like mixed black. The profile picture of this guy in the background, there's a picture of Adolf Hitler.
Oh, that's sick.
And that's where she moved in with her 3 children who are that's the last time I ever heard from them.
And the problem I think too is one of the issues that we have is that in some, especially in Canada, as I can speak on, is that when you have a kid, again, you get a baby bonus, you get money, right? Sometimes when these kids get taken away, the mother is threatened with having that removed, and so they'll do whatever they can to get that kid back, because then they're going to lose a big chunk of their money.
You get money for having a baby?
Canada, you get a baby bonus. You get
we don't get a baby bonus.
You don't get that in your states? So
no.
Here, one of the big issues is that some women who have multiple children collect upwards of $5,000-$6,000 a month, depending on how many kids they have, from the government just for having kids.
Okay, so like welfare?
No, separate from welfare.
So just from having them. Okay.
Just from having kids up till they're 18, you get paid depending on your social, depending on how much you make your income. Okay.
Okay.
If you make like lower income, you get more money. The government just gives you money for having kids. So that's one of the big issues here, is that they want that kid back because it's their paycheck. So it's just scary. Your story is scary because you put so time and effort into it. You're scared for this child, and that's it. That's then in CPS.
And you grow attached to them. You're caring for them. You grow so attached. And I wanted to point out, the other night I commented on you were singing. And I told you I just celebrated my daughter's 3rd birthday. And just after that, you started singing You'll Be in My Heart, the Tarzan.
Yeah.
That's the song I used to sing to this baby when I soothe him at night. And it made me cry.
Yeah, well, but thank you for doing that. And hopefully that the kid's in a good spot, hopefully.
I hope so.
Just that you had enough, place in your heart to do that was amazing. And so don't ever stop doing that if you ever get the opportunity.
Oh, of course not. I will always.
All right, Mandy, thanks. I got Lily waiting. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Bye. All right. We just have less people in Canada, which is why we have this rule. Like, if you have a baby in Canada and you work full time, you get a year off. It's pretty cool. Not gonna lie, you get a year of maternity leave, or up to 18 months, isn't it now, Tom? Yeah, you guys don't have that in the States? They don't give you money? It's called baby bonus here. What's it called? It's called something else here. It's called Canada Child Tax. Canada Child Benefit is what it's called. Child tax benefit. No, it's just a benefit. It's not even. You get a tax benefit too. This is just a normal benefit. Like, you get money. It's not the credit. You also get a tax credit. So you get money and you get a tax credit. So it's really good to have kids in Canada. Oh, it might be, similar. So we get a bonus and we get our income back. We have paid maternity leave up to 50% from the government, and a lot of places will top it up. Anyway, I'm going to bring in Lily. One more. I think Lily was an agent, so we're going to bring her in and we're going to talk about other stuff. Hey, Lily, you there?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yeah. And Lily, explain to me before we get started. Are you a DCF, CAS, CPS
yes,
agent?
So we call it CPS, or actually we call it Child Welfare Services in California.
Okay. So, someone says, tell me, turn up my mic. Okay. Can you tell me now, I don't know, what did you want to talk about?
So I work on the side that helps the parents reunify.
Mm-hmm.
Once the case has already come through the court and it's been decided that something has happened and either kids need to go to foster care or remain home with court supervision.
Okay.
So whether the kids are in foster care or bio parents home, we do random monthly check-ins, minimum monthly. If we have concerns, we'll go more. Most of the time unannounced, at school, at home.
It is unannounced. I was just going to ask.
Yes, some are scheduled, and it depends on the worker. Our rule is at least 51% in the home, and the majority unannounced.
I think that's probably better, right? Because unannounced, then they can't clean up or buy groceries or whatever. You know, a lot of things. What people will do here is they announce. Ours, as far as I'm aware, ours are announced most of the time, and so parents can do what they need to do to make everything look. It's so crazy, and they do that, and they know on purpose that it's going to. I don't know why they do it. You should never do an announced visit. How is that helpful?
Right. And you know, I had a foster parent tell me when I showed up unannounced, I've been a foster parent for 5 years and I've never had a social worker shut up unannounced.
Okay.
And I'm like, well,
yeah, exactly.
get ready because I'm going to.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing that's coming up a lot, that at least here in California, homelessness is not a reason to remove children. So we definitely, if the parent's in a shelter, I've heard even if they're living in their car, if it's not an infant that would be unsafe for, that wouldn't be a reason to remove children from their parents.
Here. No, that's the same here. If you're in a women's shelter and a homeless shelter, they're safe. But if you're on the streets, right, you take the kid away.
We would still have to prove how is that unsafe for the child.
How is living on the street unsafe? How do you not prove that? How do you prove
that
it's safe?
It's not freezing here.
Still, there's
so
needles.
It's our main obstacle for sure. It's the court.
Right.
A lot of preference for the parents. Then most of the time we have horrible management and no resources to help the parents get better.
It's again, what you're telling me is that bureaucracy gets in the way because managers who are out in the field power trip or they don't like you or it's just all done with like it's all internal, it's personalities, it's all this stuff. In your opinion, is it possible to overhaul the system or would it be smart to privatize it? What do you think would help fix it?
I don't think privatizing would help much. Just because of the oversight part, because records cannot be made public most of the time due to the confidentiality of the children. One of the things that they did here, I'm in San Diego, California. San Diego was sued recently, maybe 3 years ago, by children that when they aged out of the system, they sued for the abuse they suffered in the foster home.
And rightly so.
Yes. And San Diego actually put together a grand jury to investigate the system, put recommendations. They were working on implementing the recommendations when COVID hit. So I'm not exactly sure on how we're going at that. But one of the things that for sure changed is we have a voluntary program.
Yep.
If the parents admit that they made a mistake and want the help, we don't take them to court. We send them to the voluntary program where the worker goes to see them more often. They put services in place, and it's only for low risk cases. No physical abuse, no sexual abuse. If it's like drugs, domestic violence, things that are more like generational trauma type of things that we can help stabilize the situation. They made that program its own to be able to have those workers have better supervision, better access, more resources, because there's no other oversight but the social worker.
Right. One of the things that struck me about this lawsuit, is that only when it got crazy and affected a bottom line or got sued, that's when they changed things. And then again, all this stuff is readily available from these kids who come out of this trauma. They'll tell you all about it. And unfortunately, it takes lawsuits, and that has to happen. And I don't care if it costs my government billions or your government billions. Let it cost billions, because that's the only way it's going to get changed.
And I think, for me, the main thing is the resources, because yes, there are bad workers. Definitely are bad workers, bad supervisors, bad everywhere. Yes. But those of us that do want to help, it is extremely difficult. One of the first few cases I had was a sexual abuse case. Little teen girl was suicidal. I had to take her to the hospital. I stayed with her overnight, because I'm not leaving a 12-year-old by herself in the hospital. I got in trouble for that because I'm off at 5. and I didn't get pre-approved for overtime.
Oh, it's so stupid.
And I told him, like, seriously, like, this is my kid. Like, these kids are our kids.
Yeah, yeah.
We spend sometimes, it's not humanly possible to spend the time with them that we do with our own bio kids.
Mm-hmm.
But we worry about them at night, just the same.
That's why I think that you guys suffer trauma all the time because of what you have to see. What is offered as far as therapies and all that? Nothing?
We get self-care reminders.
Like a text message?
We get a training like once a year.
Oh, that's so dumb.
We do have a staff psychologist that checks in if there's like a big tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
We do not get granted immunity for lawsuits. We are able to be
Good question, yeah.
Sued directly, and we have to get our own lawyer.
You were able to be sued directly?
Yes. And I had coworkers that had to go through that.
Wow. What if you make a mistake that's outside of your, like that? Like, I mean, honestly, how many cases do you deal with?
Let me clarify. The immunity we get is criminal if your work within the scope of your duties.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If it's negligence, if you didn't care, you can definitely go to jail. But as long as you're following your lead, keep in mind, like, you can get thrown under the bus at any time by your management.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We are completely replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
There's new people graduating every year. We have hiring.
What's the turnover rate? Yeah, the turnover must be insane.
So in California, we have this program where the state pays for some of your school and you contract to work for CPS for 2 years.
Okay.
So most social workers quit after 2 years.
That's
they've paid off.
I've heard that. And then where do you land after that?
A lot of people. So if you have a master's degree, you can go anywhere you want.
Okay.
A master's degree is not required. I don't have one. I have a bachelor's.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the senior workers we have are those of us that are kind of stuck, that don't have anywhere else to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I get another social work job without a master's, I'm getting paid half what I do. That's barely enough to feed my family already.
And again, like I'll say, and I'll say it again, instead of hiring 87,000 new IRS workers, why don't you put all that money into where you're going to give people more teeth, more workers to protect. Like, imagine how many, if you're allowed to tell me, on average, how many cases does one worker have on their docket?
So when I first started, brand new worker, out of school, not even out of training, on my on-the-job training, I had 14 kids waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
They were being babysat by other workers, meaning they just did the minimum compliance, but nobody was actually overseeing their day-to-day.
Yeah.
At that point in time, it was around 30. That was the average.
Okay.
Nowadays, the average, they're trying to keep it to 20, but the amount of work that we have to do for each case is about double.
And imagine you could get that down to half, then you could focus more attention on I mean, it would just be the better care. It'd be better care, like the end.
Right.
Now, a case like I talk about here a lot is Daniel Cohn, a teenager who is hypersexualized by her mother online. That type of abuse that isn't necessarily abusive, like there's no like physical abuse, but it's like exploitative abuse. Do you have any power at all to do anything in those types of situations?
So we do have legislation under this Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children Act.
Okay.
But they are going to have private lawyers.
Yeah, exactly, because they're wealthy.
Yeah, they have money. They're gonna, the kid is not gonna open up about anything. Everything, all her older boyfriends, everything's consensual.
Mm-hmm.
It would be very difficult. And the thing
they
is,
can afford it. If you have money, you can get around anything. There's, again, like it always is in every case, the more money you have, the law applies to you differently.
Yes. And a lot of the cases that we see with physical abuse, drugs, people with money do it just as often as poor people, but they have babysitters. So the kids are not technically exposed. So like when the parent is an alcoholic.
Oh, I see. Right.
If the kid is with a safe caregiver, because they have a paid babysitter or a nanny live in, then that's fine because the parent's making the choice to have a safe adult.
Plus, you guys don't want to
caring
go up
for their
against
kid.
expensive lawyers because it's going to cost more, and it's all about the bottom line.
Well, not technically, that's a whole other issue.
But yes. Well, okay, Lily, I really appreciate it. And hopefully, you, if I have questions about CPI, I feel like I would love to contact you more about those types of questions if I have more.
Definitely. Yeah. And I have I've gotten in trouble at the office enough already for speaking my mind.
Okay.
I don't mind. This account I have is my fake name anyways.
Good.
So I'm good to spill any, and I'm in California. So if you do dive into Gabriel Fernandez,
Yes, I will. I will.
I don't know if you can stomach that documentary. Is pretty bad.
I know. I'm gonna. Yeah, I will, and I'd love to tap your brain a little bit more into this stuff because you've got some inside information, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any questions for Lily? Wow.
I can't see the chat, so I don't know. I only see what you put up on the screen.
No, not much going on. Anyway, well, honestly, I'll just keep in touch with me, and I'd love to have you back when we do more stuff, because this tends to come up a lot in these real crime stuff, always.
Right.
So, anyway, Lily, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Excellent. All right, everybody, that was, I honestly, I like that. I think that most CPS agents are willing to talk about this stuff, especially at the end of their tenure, because they're like, the things that they've seen is insane. So thanks, Leo. I really appreciate it. Anyway, this case is not over. We're going to follow it, obviously. Yes, I'll probably get into Summer Wells and all those other cases, guys. I promise. Just got to learn about them a little bit more. I've got a lot to learn, so I don't want to, I got to give it justice. You know what I'm saying? So thank you so much for being here, everybody. I appreciate it. What time is it? Holy smokes, it's almost 11. I got to go to bed. I got to eat peanut butter. So thanks for being here. I've never seen Dear Zachary. No, I have not seen that. So, but, yeah, I don't know, man. At least I don't know how people watch these all the time and not just like let it sit rent free in your head. Yeah. So you guys, it's funny because you guys always learn something new about Canada, which is pretty cool. But yes, someone was mentioning the taxes. Oh yeah, we're taxed. Oh yeah. Like, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like 45%. 45% of our income is taxed. So yeah, we get some cool stuff, but the tax will blow your mind. Insane. So, well, let's talk next time. Hopefully you'll see tomorrow for something else. I don't know. I will cover things. Yes, I'll cover Jess Fam's video as soon as she releases it. Everybody was asking about Jess Fam catching COVID, not being a good Disney. Anyway, we'll do it. Guys, thank you so much for being here. And I will, the lowest tax bracket is 45%, but I will see you guys